You see, suffering is a universal human event. The suffering I found that I couldn't overcome on my own was fighting for my life, on fire, in the desert of Afghanistan. That was a day and an opportunity to change my life. We knew that the enemy was out there. They were watching us, and occasionally we'd have a rocket attack or a mortar attack. Right after dusk, I got a call on the radio from one of my best friends, and he says basically, "Hey, I'm under attack. I've got mortar rounds coming in off this mountain range." And I said, "Do you need support?" And he says, "Yeah." I gathered a few vehicles and we took off. I had one vehicle in front of me and I was directing them by the radio. And right as we got to what we'd call the engagement area, it's where the fight is happening. And I was on the radio and then everything went silent. I could feel my body just being sunk down into this vehicle, into the seat. And I saw this bright, brilliant flash of orange. It just filled the vehicle, and I knew in that moment that we hit an IED. A roadside bomb just tore through the vehicle. What do you do? What do you do in that moment when tragedy strikes and suffering begins? You see, for me, it was an IED that engulfed me in flames. I found myself outside this vehicle, burning from my knees up, and I could see nothing but hell's flames in front of my face. My first instinct was to literally throw my arms in the air and I screamed, "Jesus, save me." I threw myself into the dirt. I tried to smother these flames, but where the bomb had gone off in the vehicle was right underneath the fuel tank. And so I was soaked in diesel and I was on fire, and smothering it was not going to work. I rolled around fighting it for a bit to no avail. And I remember thinking three distinct things. How long is it going to take to burn to death? What's the transition from this life to the next going to be like? And my last thought was giving up the will to live. And the last haunt of my life was the fact that I was in isolation. No one else was there to help me. I was laying there waiting for death. I heard a voice. It was the voice of my gunner, one of the guys that was just in the vehicle with me. You see, I thought he was dead. I thought all my men had died until I heard Kevin Jensen say, "Sir, I've got you." It's an incredible miracle what happens in that moment when you go from complete despair to now total faith. That not only are we going to come through this is not the end, but now I knew in the core of my being, I knew that there was now life and purpose for that moment. I heard Kevin say, "Sir, I've got you." I could feel him moving over the top of my body and smothering the flames out with sand. And I rose up and I could see again. And I remember the joy that led to hope. You see, there's a difference between a challenge and real suffering. None of us look for the suffering. We all look for challenges. For you, it may have been to get a certain job. Hey, I want to do that. I am going to do that, and you did it. Some of us chose challenges that we ran up against and found out, hey, this is a little bit tougher than I thought or wanted, so I'm going to back out of this, no big deal. Suffering, though, there is no choice. We encounter it, and we have to go through it. For me, it was an IED in the road that day that lit me on fire. For some of you, it was your parents getting divorced when you were 7 years old. Some of you have seen people battle cancer. Maybe it was you. You see, the interesting thing about suffering that makes it very distinctly different from a challenge is we have no choice about it, but we do have a choice of what we do with it. You see, we can either let it be the negative definition of our life. It can be the thing that breaks us and forever becomes that negative identity. Or we can choose to see the beauty in it. We can push through and we can overcome. But remember that as we suffer, it's not a one-time event. We'll continue to suffer so long as we're on this planet because we live in a broken world. But so long as we can remain joyful, it will increase our endurance. And getting through that suffering last time, we'll have the endurance to get through more, and it will refine our character, and we know where our hope comes from. Our faith in Jesus can give us hope, and it starts with being able to rejoice in our suffering. And the last thing is this: be like Kevin Jensen. You see people, and they're at that place where they didn't ask for that suffering. It's not a challenge that they went out and volunteered for. They're in true suffering. Reach out that hand and raise your voice and say, I've got you. Because sometimes that's all someone needs to go from having given up to having faith.